Since you were young, you were taught that being there for others is a virtue. A whispered reward awaited the one who never said no. Love, belonging, a sense of purpose. You learned to answer before the question was finished, to smile before understanding why, to open your heart wide, even when it ached to stay closed. No one warned you that this eagerness to be available could become invisible chains growing heavier with every yes. You became the reliable one, the one they called in the middle of the night, the one who held secrets, soothed fears, patched wounds that were never yours to mend. At first it felt good, needed, seen. But deep inside a quiet discomfort stirred, a whisper too faint to hear amid the applause. It began subtly, a missed moment of your own joy because you were tending to someone else's storm, a forgotten dream set aside to comfort another's doubt. Over time, exhaustion became your shadow, yet you wore it like a badge, believing it proved your goodness. You told yourself it was love. You told yourself it was duty. But something deeper, a knowing not yet fully born, questioned, is this truly who I am meant to be? The world cheered your predictability. It praised the way you absorbed the chaos, the way you made others feel lighter, safer, more important. They loved your light because it illuminated their darkness, but no one asked what it cost you to shine so constantly. You didn't notice at first how quickly others turned away when you needed the same care you gave so freely. You rationalized their absence, made excuses, silenced the rising tide of resentment by drowning it in more giving. But the body remembers what the mind tries to forget. The ache in your chest, the hollowness after too many words given to those who never listened, the tiredness that no amount of sleep could heal. These were the first cracks. You began to glimpse the cost, your energy, your dreams, your peace. A silent ledger, invisible to the world, but carved into the fibers of your being. Every forced yes etched another line. Every swallowed no deepened the wound. Still, you stayed. You stayed because you feared what leaving would mean. That you would be called selfish, that you would lose love, that you would be alone. You stayed because somewhere along the way, you confused being loved with being needed. But change, once it begins, has a way of unraveling everything. A single thought, small, defiant, but undeniable, took root. Maybe my worth is not measured by how much of myself I can give away. It is a dangerous thought. A liberating one. And though you may not know it yet, this thought is the first tremor in the collapse of the old world you built from chains and sacrifice. In the quiet moments, between the noise of demands and expectations, you start to hear it more clearly. A question that once seemed impossible now presses against your ribs, refusing to be ignored. What if I chose myself? You are standing on the edge of something vast and unknown. The ground beneath you trembles. The walls you leaned on for so long, approval, praise, validation, begin to crumble. And somewhere deep inside, a part of you, long silent, stirs and breathes. You do not know what comes next, but the old chains are loosening, and the invisible prison you once called love is showing its cracks. The question now is not whether you will change. The question is, are you ready for what freedom demands? Sometimes all it takes is one betrayal, one manipulation too many, and you finally see it. It doesn't always come in a grand explosion. Sometimes it's in the quiet slight, the forgotten message, the backhanded compliment, the feeling that your presence is assumed, not cherished. You sit there staring at a screen, at a room full of voices, at an empty promise, and suddenly you realize, this is not love, this is expectation. The realization is a crack of light through a long-closed window. It burns at first, it blinds, but once your eyes adjust, you cannot unsee it. You notice how often your kindness has been a currency, how often your patience has been exploited, how often your silence has been mistaken for consent. You recall every moment you bit your tongue to keep the peace, every moment you swallowed your needs to meet another's demands, every moment you said, "It's okay," when it never really was. It is a graveyard of tiny betrayals. 2014, your betrayals of yourself. You feel anger first, a flash of heat, a roar rising in your chest. But anger, in its purest form, is not destruction. It is a boundary forming where none existed before. You remember Jung's words, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves." And for the first time, you don't use that quote to excuse their behavior. You use it to confront your own. You understand now it was never about them. It was about the places within you still aching for validation, still bleeding from old wounds. You see how easily you were led, not because they were powerful, but because you were still searching for something outside yourself. And with that understanding, a strange calm settles over you. You don't need to argue, you don't need to confront, you don't need to explain. You only need to withdraw, not out of spite, not out of pride, out of reverence for the self you abandoned for too long. And so, quietly, without fanfare, you begin to pull back. You stop answering right away. You allow the discomfort to sit between you and those who took your presence for granted. And almost immediately the world shifts. The ones who once praised your endless giving grow uneasy. They poke, they prod, they provoke you 2014 anything to drag you back into the familiar dance. But something inside you holds firm. A flicker of strength, small but steady, whispers, "Let them be uncomfortable." You are not their comfort anymore. You have taken the first step out of the maze, and though fear still lingers like mist at your feet, a deeper part of you knows there is no turning back. The greatest shift doesn't happen when you fight back. It happens when you say nothing. It is a strange thing, choosing silence when every part of you is trained to explain, to justify, to rush in and smooth over discomfort. But one day, after too many battles that left you emptier than before, you finally resist the urge. Someone sends a message, dripping with passive aggression. Someone makes a comment, meant to sting and draw you into defense. And this time you don't respond. You stare at the words. You feel the old reflexes kick in, the need to answer, to correct, to restore the image of yourself as good. But you do not move. Instead, you breathe. A simple breath. A radical act. Because in that breath you reclaim something that was taken without your consent, your choice. The silence stretches between you and them like a taut thread. You expect it to snap, to explode, to demand attention. But instead, something curious happens. It is they who unravel. The ones who thrived on your predictability now scramble in confusion. They send more messages. They escalate the tone. They try to bait you with guilt, with anger, with nostalgia. Because they don't miss you, they miss the version of you that reacted on command. You see it clearly now. Your reactions were never just about communication. They were currency, control. And in choosing silence, you have rendered their tactics useless. It is not easy. Every fiber of your being strains against the stillness. You want to break it. You want to rush in and fix their discomfort, because for so long their peace was your burden. But you stay silent, not out of cruelty, not out of coldness, out of respect for yourself. You realize that silence is not absence, it is amplified presence. It is the refusal to be dragged into battles that were never yours to fight. And in that silence, you begin to hear things you never could before. You hear your own exhaustion. You hear the old stories playing in your mind, whispering that love must be earned through sacrifice. You hear the small, steady voice inside you, the one you buried long ago, saying, "There is another way." Every unanswered message is a declaration. I am not available for chaos anymore. Every breath you take instead of reacting is a boundary drawn in gold. And every moment you choose your peace over proving a point, you break another link in the invisible chains that bound you. But silence, once chosen, demands you face what noise always drowned out. The old fears, the loneliness, the doubts. They rise like ghosts in the stillness, demanding your attention now that there are no more distractions. And yet, even as the old fears knock at your door, you remain still. Because some doors, once closed, must never be opened again. You are learning to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. You are learning that peace isn't the absence of problems. It is the mastery of your own presence amidst them. And slowly in the quiet you realize, This silence is not empty. It is full of you. Freedom isn't always light. Sometimes it crushes you first. In the days that follow your withdrawal, the silence grows thicker. It is not the triumphant, peaceful silence you imagined. It is dense, heavy, filled with the echoes of the life you left behind. You wonder if you made a mistake. The old doubts creep in. Maybe I was too harsh. Maybe they didn't mean to hurt me. Maybe being needed is better than being forgotten. You check your phone more often than you'd like to admit, waiting for a message that doesn't come. Or worse, receiving messages that twist the knife deeper. Accusations, guilt, demands for the old version of you to return. And in the middle of it all, an aching loneliness sets in. It presses against your chest, a physical weight. You feel untethered, floating between the person you were and the person you are becoming. You walk through familiar places, cafes, parks, quiet streets, and feel like a ghost in your own life. You see faces you once lit up for, conversations you once would have rushed to maintain, now drifting past you like smoke. You grieve, not just for the relationships you are losing, but for the illusions you can no longer sustain. This grief is sharp because it cuts through every layer of pretense you built to survive. You realize now that much of your connection to others was built not on love but on fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of being invisible. And now that you are invisible to them, you are forced to see yourself, truly, painfully, beautifully. There is no applause here, no reassuring nods, only the raw, unfiltered reality of who you are when no one is watching. You sit with the loneliness, you sit with the ache, you sit with the part of you that begged for scraps of affection and called it love. It is brutal. It is necessary. Because pain, when faced with courage, becomes purification. You remember the Stoic teaching. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. And you begin to see that while the loneliness feels unbearable, it is not killing you. It is cleansing you. You are mourning the death of your old self, the one who gave everything for nothing, the one who feared silence more than betrayal, the one who believed being useful was the same as being loved. And as in all deaths, there is a stillness after the storm. One morning you wake up and realize that the silence is not as heavy as before. It still hurts, but there is space around the pain now, room enough for something new to grow. You go for a walk, you breathe deeper. You notice the sound of your own footsteps, steady and sure on the path ahead. And deep inside, beneath the ache, you sense it. Freedom. Not the euphoric kind, not yet, but the quiet, stubborn kind, the kind that does not ask permission, the kind that plants its flag in the soil of your soul and refuses to be uprooted again. You are not healed yet, you are not whole yet, but you are free, and that changes everything. And in the silence of your new world, a new voice whispers, you are not losing yourself, you are finally coming home. When noise fades, you realize you were whole all along. There is a strange kind of peace that follows deep pain. Not the peace of having won a battle, but the peace of having surrendered to the truth. You no longer wake up reaching for validation. You no longer scroll through old messages hoping for an apology that will never come. Instead, you rise slowly. You move deliberately. You sip your coffee in silence, savoring the warmth on your tongue. You take walks without your phone, feeling the wind press against your skin, reminding you that you are still here, still breathing, still enough. The world outside hasn't changed, but your relationship to it has. You no longer rush to answer every call. You no longer feel guilt for letting a message sit unanswered. You have stopped explaining your silence. You have started protecting it instead. You begin to see your energy as sacred, no longer a resource for anyone to drain at will. Each decision becomes an act of reverence. Does this nourish me, or does it deplete me? And slowly your life reshapes itself around the answers. You reconnect with old passions, the book half read on your shelf, the hobby you abandoned when life became too noisy. You find solace in small rituals, lighting a candle at sunset, journaling your thoughts, breathing deeply in the stillness of early morning. Your circle shrinks. Some people drift away, uncomfortable with your boundaries. They call you distant, aloof, cold. But you are not cold. You are clear. Those who once relied on your constant availability find no purchase in the new landscape of your soul. They grow frustrated. They try to pull you back into the familiar dance of overextension. But now, you see it for what it is. A game you are no longer willing to play. You choose your battles, you choose your conversations, you choose your silences. And in that choosing, you regain the sovereignty that was always your birthright. You notice something else too. The ones who remain, the rare ones, respect your space. They do not demand access. They do not guilt you into presence. They meet you in the middle, whole in themselves, asking nothing more than your true self. It is not a crowd. It is not a chorus. It is a few quiet souls walking beside you in the same deliberate pace, each carrying their own light. This is not loneliness. This is discernment. You understand now. Not everyone deserves access to your heart. Not everyone has earned the right to hear your truth. You are not closing yourself off from the world. You are simply refusing to bleed for it anymore. And as you build this quieter, sturdier life, you feel a strength growing inside you. A strength that does not shout, does not posture, does not need recognition. It simply is. Now, silence isn't absence, it's sovereignty, and the ground beneath your feet feels solid for the first time in a very, very long while. You smile not for anyone else, but for yourself. Because you know, you are no longer surviving, you are living. You no longer chase. You no longer explain. You no longer fear the void. There is a calmness now that no one taught you. It grew quietly, like a tree taking root while the world was busy shouting, and now it stands firm within you, silent and unshakable. You move through your days with intention, no longer scrambling to fill the empty spaces with noise, people, or validation. You allow the emptiness to exist. You allow yourself to exist within it. You answer only when your spirit stirs, not when the world demands. You speak only when your words feel like offerings, not obligations. And in this deliberate living, you discover a richness that chaos never could provide. You watch as life continues its noisy dance around you, arguments, rushes, endless appetites for attention. But you no longer feel pulled into the current. You have become the stillness in the river. Occasionally, loneliness visits. It knocks gently, no longer the violent intruder it once was. You welcome it in, offer it tea, and sit together in silence. You know now that loneliness is not the enemy. It is the echo of a life that is no longer dictated by crowds. You think back to the ones who said you were selfish, arrogant, changed. You smile softly, not out of bitterness but out of gratitude. Because they were right, you have changed. You are no longer available for chaos, no longer available for guilt-driven love, no longer available for anything that demands you abandon yourself. And in that unavailability, you have become something rare. You have become sovereign. Your silence speaks louder than any argument ever could. It says, I am whole without your approval. I am complete without your attention. I am at peace without your permission. And now, when you walk into a room, you do not announce yourself, you do not seek to be seen, you simply exist, steady, full enough, and it is felt. Some are drawn to it with awe. Some are repelled by it with fear, but none can deny it. Because true presence requires no performance, it is a quiet power, a sovereign silence, and from now on, you are unavailable for anything less than peace. The sun rises quietly over a still horizon, painting the world in muted gold. No trumpets, no fanfare, just the steady unveiling of a new day. And like that first light, your silence, your sovereignty, announces itself without sound. In choosing your peace, you have chosen a strength deeper than noise, fiercer than validation. Even in stillness, strength endures. Perhaps today, beneath the weight of expectation and the hum of the world, you might hear it too. The quiet call to stand steady, to live gently, to be whole without witness. The path is not loud, it is not crowded, but it is yours, and it is enough.